Brother, these people are degenerates. And when I decided all of my snakes had arenavirus, I euthanized all of them. I didn't have any snakes. It's mostly because podcasts don't want to talk about, I mean, some of them do, but they struggle to talk about real things. Most people have heard enough about lots of diseases now that they're choosing not to care. I don't know if this is public knowledge.
Howdy, folks. Brian Kusko here at Redline Report, and today we're going to sit down with Jessica of Hare Hollow. Jessica also has a podcast called the Holdback Rack Podcast. The link will be in the description for that. Jessica had to euthanize all of her snakes a while back, and she's going to talk about what you can do from that ever having to be you doing that with all of your snakes. You're watching Redline Report.
There's something about shows, they don't want to tell you where the loading dock is or what time you should be there. They just want you to guess. Like little shows. Like you're like, well, which door do I load in? They don't tell you. They want you to guess. And so like you have to just experience it. So someone who's autistic and is like really concerned about how to
Details.
do things correctly
Yeah.
struggles. And I was like, oh yeah, thank God. But that's the difference. Like the show actually has a load-in map with an arrow. That's all it takes.
So is that not a common thing
No,
for a show?
brother,
No?
these people are degenerates.
Oh.
Sometimes they'll even like I've driven to venues and gone to multiple docks and been like, hello, wrong building. Like the information was wrong. They just expect you to drive around a general address and hope that you get in.
That seems insane. Not mildly, but very.
In like inclement weather, hot or cold, with animals in your car. So you're supposed to park your car at 110 and run around looking for a place to go. This is totally normal in like the little show circuits. Put it that way.
Okay.
It's crazy.
All right. And this is an exception.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, even in RBCs like this, where they don't actually tell you which dock to use either. They didn't for Dallas.
You just have to know.
Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness. How long have you been keeping snakes?
So I started in 2019 the second time. The first time I had snakes in 98 to 2008. And then at the end, when I decided all of my snakes had arenavirus, I euthanized all of them. I didn't have any snakes. Obviously, they're all gone. And then I went to, my undergrad was in environmental science, but my research was wood turtles, and my master's was actually in herpetology. And my master's thesis was on wood turtles. And then I was like, maybe the hobby's better now because we have testing for disease. So I got back in.
Okay.
And then the pandemic happened, which was weird, but, we were all there. We know what happened.
Yeah. Is that what started was it during the pandemic? That's when you started the podcast?
I guess it was the year after, 21.
Okay.
It's mostly because podcasts don't want to talk about, I mean, some of them do, but they struggle to talk about real things. It's largely about like hype. Some of the hosts are kind of clout demons, which is fine. But you're just like, hey, I'm talking to you, and like you have nice snakes, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna be a millionaire. But I'd like to talk about other weird stuff, which isn't really that popular. But all of my snakes died for arenavirus, so I talk about disease. And then I still get messages daily, like, why doesn't anybody talk about it? I'm like, I guess I gotta keep talking about it because the message isn't out there, right?
There's a feel like there's some talk about it, not no talk.
It's getting better. It used to be when you message someone in like 2020 or 2021, you're like, hey, if I get it and I test it and it's positive, can I send it back for a refund? They would just ghost you. So it's taken like 4 years for people to be like, yeah, sure, that's reasonable. As long as you don't like mix it with your snakes and you keep it. It's taken a long time. It used to be like very frowned upon.
Frowned upon to
even ask. To give someone money, cash, and have some kind of guarantee.
Yeah. That's seems counterintuitive.
Well, maybe it was easy money time, so like other people were less problematic. But like now that it's harder to get money, people are more willing to do it. But I mean, you would be surprised how many people were like, no, never test anything I ever send you. I don't want to know.
That seems like putting your ostrich head in the sand.
Right. But we've been doing that for 20, 30 years with stuff, you know?
I guess, I mean, if I'm honest, there's probably a thing or two in my life where I do that. Uh, Not with something that affects other people, I wouldn't think or hope.
Well, it's hard to know the things you don't know, right?
Yeah, that seems accurate and very hard
Right.
to know
And
things you don't know.
it seems crazy because, like, you could watch someone be like, I don't know, like very small husbandry error that you're like, of course you should know that, but they don't even know that they should know that. So, like,
Mm.
that's why when you're like, hey, you don't really want a ball python with nidovirus, even though some of them can have a relatively okay life. But people don't know that they should know not to want that. They don't even know anything, so they just don't want to know at all. Because
Mm.
then they have like plausible deniability. I had
Mm.
no idea. But sometimes they get sort of drippy in the winter, but whatever. But I had no idea because I never tested to begin with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. But I would hope for better.
That is always true.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess you can't blame ignorance. You can't blame somebody for the ignorance. That's just a lack of information. But you
Correct.
can blame willful ignorance. I mean, like,
Right. That's the part that start to get like rather, you know, rather because they're making choices then from a place of understanding, and they're choosing not to care.
that's different than
Basically,
ignorance.
absolutely. And some of them, most people have heard enough about lots of these diseases now that they're choosing not to care.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I haven't tested anything for a while. Well, I don't usually get snakes. I don't get many snakes.
It's probably good,
Yeah.
right?
And when I do, I've got a pretty substantial quarantine period. I've got a. You can tell me what you think of being that you've been through it. I do 3 months and or 3 shed cycles, whichever is longest.
Hmm.
And that's, I mean, like I've gotten 2 snakes in the last like 3 years. So that's the.
The hard part is like that sounds good, but some things don't care about that duration of time.
It could be years.
Yeah, like arenavirus and boas. Boas are well adapted to arenavirus. They like evolve together. They deal with it. They can control it internally until maybe some kind of trigger or co-infection with another virus or bacteria causes them to actually have symptoms of IBD. But that snake could look fine for its whole life, but then kill all the pythons next to it.
Mm,
And so then duration of time
doesn't matter.
tells you a little bit, but it doesn't tell you everything.
Right.
So it's hard to give people blanket statements like, yeah, even 1 year for a boa, I think is inadequate, really.
Yeah. So testing
Yeah.
everything is the only true.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is still not fair because we don't know all the diseases that a snake could have,
Yeah.
right? So you can't test for everything that they could ever have because we don't even know what they can have. So it
Mm.
has to be some component of both, and then like biosecurity systems within your collection where even if you can't test them or you don't want to test them, they aren't touching other species. There's no cross contamination issues because you just don't know everything, you know.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I bet. I mean, that was how many animals did you have at that time back in '08 or whatever?
Maybe like 50 or 60. And they were all like, so at that point, because I was like a child, so I had like a leopard gecko and an iguana and pets. But then I had boas, and I was like, boas are my favorite. So by the end, I'd sold off the extras and I had boas and ATBs. And I was like, great. And so I had collection, I had breeding projects and plans and, you know, all the things we do now. But I was like a little kid, like, you know, whatever, 18, I guess, by then. And then I just started to see them like being neuro and weird. And you're like, oh. But by then we had no test. You would euthanize and look for inclusion bodies in the brain. You could do blood smears and look for inclusion bodies. It wasn't accurate, and you could do liver biopsies and maybe not kill them doing that. Also not that accurate. So it's basically just like give up at that time. But after leaving, we discovered the causative agent, which was a virus. But that was in 2012. And so all of my snakes were already dead by then. So I probably euthanized not 6 snakes, 2. So it's I don't understand why people don't want to test. It like, you know, lifts back the fog of keeping in a way that it would be awesome. It would have been awesome back then. Why can't it be awesome now when we can already do it?
Mm.
But most people aren't ready. Still too scared to lift back the fog.
And find out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It's interesting. But we're getting there. And I think a lot of people are like, well, my snakes seem fine, so they probably are fine. And they probably are. But they live in a world where they haven't been burned yet. And so they're happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that. So the answer is testing, and there's many places you can do that today.
There's probably really three in the
Okay.
U.S. University of Florida.
Right.
If you wanted to go to the sauce, basically. Vet DNA, so RAL, and then Fish Head, depending on which diagnostic services you wanted.
Yeah. This fish head goes through University of Florida, yeah?
No, they're... I don't know if this is public knowledge, but they're subcontract to another university.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then what's hard is like Florida will do sequencing for you if you want, like if you want confirmation of the strain or whatever, but they're very expensive. And then you have to use a vet mediation, so they become more expensive. So sometimes people like I really need to know which strain because they're really concerned about like the origin. Like if it came in on this animal, then you would want to get it sequenced. You'd want to go through a vet and get it through University of Florida. Otherwise, most people use Fish Head or RAL.
Yeah, fish head is what I used when I tested a few animals back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you traumatized now?
Am I traumatized from having tested before?
No, about like the ones you haven't tested.
I mean, mildly.
It's funny. It's like talking about it. Sometimes it's like the void is finally like people stare into the void, and now the void's staring back because it's like, oh, there could be more, and it's not okay, but you don't know, so you have to think about it, and it's that uncertainty that causes anxiety. That's why I'm just like everyone should just be testing all the time. Then you wouldn't have that.
Yeah, I am motivated after this last 10 minutes to go and test everything.
And wouldn't it be cool to know that they all have one negative under their belt, and that would be like, oh yeah, pretty good.
That would be cool to know.
Yeah.
Yes, it would. And I mean, fish is what, $20 now?
RAL's 20 for a single RNA test, 60 for a panel. And then Fish Head, I don't know, they're current 65 for a kit, I think, per test. But you get more stuff. You get like a little more hand holding in the materials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh dang it. That's good. I'm glad that we've I mean, like you said, there hasn't been enough, so hopefully the more we can get out there, the more people can know and less ignorance can prevail.
Yeah. It's just hard because you sound like a whiner or something.
Or a doomsday.
Yeah, like everyone should be, more ethical or whatever. Like treat their snakes nicer. And that so people will like, your hysterical woman part. And then it's like, it's not about that. It's about like trying to, like I had goats in my yard. I had to blood test them every year for goat stuff because, deer exist sympatric with goats. And so they could, and you drink the milk. Don't you want a goat that's not sick to drink the milk? You don't want tuberculosis, right? Awesome. Let's not have tuberculosis. Instead, we just do herd health. It's just health management. Once a year, we test all your goats. We could do the same for snakes.
Yeah. I think probably the lack of motivation there is that like, well, I'm not getting rhinovirus from a snake. I'm not suckling from the sneet of the snake.
Maybe. That's the hard part with zoonotic diseases is you don't know.
Maybe you can.
Yeah, there's a lot of intimacy between keepers and the kept. You're cleaning, you're slinging poop, you're touching. Usually viruses that are in ectotherms don't want to get in endotherms.
Right.
We're too warm. They want to be at ectotherm temperatures. But I don't know. Just so you know, there are snake DNA in cows. So that means a virus did horizontal gene transfer at some point between a snake and a cow. So it's still possible that fun things could start happening. And I'm not saying that's going to happen because that would be like a problem. But
was that a milk snake? Sorry, I had to.
But so it can happen, I guess is what I'm saying. That's not what I would be primarily worried about. I'd be worried about like, hey, you have an investment, you have livestock, you want them to produce babies, you want to take care of them, you have pets, you want to take care of them. Why wouldn't you take care of them? It's simple as that, really. And part of that is disease management. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. I mean that was solid. That was solid. I feel like that. What I love is that I didn't know what we were going to talk about when we sat down.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not. Don't apologize.
We can talk about something happier.
I don't want to talk about something happier. I want to talk about that, and we just did. I wanted to talk about what it was you wanted to talk about, and that's why I didn't say, "Hey, let's start with this question." I started with let's just sit down and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it's a primary motivator in my keeping now with this collection, largely because I had to euthanize the last collection.
Sure.
And so that's just where I am from day one. And so some people are like, you're, a little bit over the top with it. Well, let me know what it's like when you've euthanized your first pet snake all the way to your favorite snake as like a 20-something that you got all of them when you were 12 years old. Let me know what that's like. And then you will be this draconian,
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Okay.
It's totally fair. Super
it's
fair.
hard. And I know it's hard because a lot of people are like, there's a financial cost to this sort of whatever. So that's why I'm always like, new people, especially you have 3 snakes, just start now.
Yeah.
It's not, the burden isn't as much.
Right.
If you start from the beginning.
Totally.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good word. Anything that you'd like to add on that before I know you gotta get back to your booth, but anything that you didn't cover in that seems pretty good and thorough information. I mean,
no, everybody should go to let's autistically look at the camera at All American Plant and Reptile Expo because I'm here and I have a big sign that says I test all my snakes and they let me put it up, so that's cool.
Cool.
Yep.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jess.
Let me look at the camera again.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching. There will be links down in the description for all of the facilities that you can do that testing through. Big thanks to Jessica for coming on and sharing her experience and talking about and encouraging folks to keep their animals healthy and alive. Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Next Tuesday, we will have another awesome interview right here on the Redline Report. Until then, y'all take care. Prior time, you can just look right into that camera because it can't actually see you. So that would be
this one.
Yeah, that one can't see you. This one can definitely see you. This one can definitely see you. So you could just look at that, and it would almost look. I'd almost
like this.
Yeah.
Is that the right kind of autistic stare?
Yeah, that
I saw
works.
that a lot this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of autistic.
I love them. Bless their hearts.
What the acoustics?
The autists among us they're like the best. They're like, oh, I see what this is. And they're like, they get really close to your belly, and they're like, and they tell their mom or whatever what it is. I'm like, good for you, brother.
Yeah,
love you.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was talking to, I don't know if this is TMI or something, but I was talking to Donovan because I interviewed him.
That was awesome.
Good.
I wish they all went like that. Honestly, it's great. You know what you want to bring it.